So now we're going to turn to our first speaker. Sherry, can you say hello?
Hello. Hi, everyone.
Well, Sherry, thank you so much for being with us today. So while you pull up your slides, can you give us a self-introduction?
Sure thing. Let me do it. Sometimes it's hard to do two things at once. So here we go. Hopefully you're seeing the slides now. Thumbs up on that. Yeah. Okay. So I am Sherry Warner, and I am the Education Director with the Peer Support Coalition of Florida. And Peer Support Coalition is the statewide peer network that's dedicated to advancing peer support in Florida. And what we do is we work to promote peer support and advanced recovery support from mental health and substance use disorders. And we do this through advocacy, education, training, and support, and then developing peer networks. The Peer Experience National Technical Assistance Center, or we call it PENTAC, is a program of the Peer Support Coalition of Florida, and it's one of only five national consumer support health networks that's funded by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. So my main role as the education director is in training peer specialists to become certified through the state and in organizing the delivery of educational programs that help the peer specialist with their continuing education units for the board. And if you're wondering what a peer specialist is, if that's new to you, it's someone who uses their lived experience and skills learned in training to help others achieve and maintain recovery and wellness from mental health and or substance use conditions. And that CRPS credential designates competency in the domains of recovery support, advocacy, mentoring, and professional responsibilities. And that credential is recognized as a billable service by the Florida's state Medicaid plan. And I am state certified, and I do have a national certification in as a peer recovery support specialist. And I had a former career as a school teacher, so it kind of just melted into my role now. So I'm going to go ahead and talk to you a little bit about our objectives for today. I'm going to discuss emotional intelligence and how it is connected to our IQ and our personalities. Then we're going to learn why it matters in leadership. We'll learn the key concepts in increasing that emotional intelligence quotient, and then determine specific tasks that we can use to develop those skills. So here we are, starting out. Emotional intelligence is probably not a new term to you, but it refers to the capacity for recognizing our own feelings and those of others, often referred to as self-awareness. EQ is the ability to manage emotions well in ourselves and in our relationships. As you can see on the slide, 10% is what we see on the surface. That's our human behavior and results or actions, as in what we say or do and how we present ourselves. And that is influenced by the 90% of what is underneath the surface. Those human characteristics such as our habits and thoughts, our culture, character, values, emotions, beliefs, education, nature, needs, the list goes on. And if only 10% of ourselves is what others see and interact with, what we want is to work on that 90% that is underneath to maximize the impact of the 10% that others around us see and interact with. While strong intellect and experience may get individuals into professional positions, our emotional intelligence spells the difference between those who excel and those who underachieve. It explains why individuals with similar intelligence can reach vastly different levels of success in their professional and personal lives. There actually is no known connection between IQ and EQ. You simply cannot predict emotional intelligence based on how smart someone is. Cognitive intelligence, or your IQ, is thought by many researchers as not being flexible, meaning basically it's fixed from birth. Your IQ is your ability to learn. How much you learn is based on a lot of different factors. And intelligence is not the same thing as knowledge. Again, intelligence is your ability to learn, and it's the same at age 15 as it is at age 50. Knowledge can be obtained by working hard at it. And individuals with higher IQs don't have to work as hard at it. But EQ, emotional intelligence, unlike our IQ, is a flexible skill that can be learned. And a high EQ can be developed even if you are not born with it. And most of us aren't. Here's a quote by Dr. Nardi. He is an author and neuroscientist. He says, every person comes into this world with capabilities and potential, and together we can prosper by our differing gifts. Each personality type shows patterns of brain activity that strongly influence their experience. Everyone is capable and has creative flow, though what evokes that flow varies. The brain is a diverse, dynamic system, and your brain today is not your brain, it's not your destiny. Culture, expertise, talents, time, experience, awareness, attention, and focus, those can all help us to enhance and nurture those traits that are natural preferences so that we can maximize our potential and contributions in society. And we can also choose to nurture and enhance secondary traits. There are so many types of personality assessments, but some of the most known and most used are the Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, the DISC, the Big Five. I'm sure many of you are aware of those, but free assessments can be found online. And if you have not ever done one for yourself, I recommend it. That self-awareness and knowledge helps us in growing our EQ. And while personality can't be used to predict emotional intelligence, and personality is also kind of stable over a lifetime, you can use your personality to assist in developing your emotional intelligence. But again, that emotional intelligence is not at all dependent on your IQ. So I want you to notice the area in purple. This image represents an individual using that 10% that I was talking about earlier. What they know, their natural ability to learn, their unique personality traits, and what they've learned and developed of their self-awareness and management of their interactions with others. And take a look at this image. This image is going to represent the same person. The personality and IQ circles or ovals that you see are the same, but the individual has put in the time and effort to increase their awareness and work on their interpersonal skills, which is their ability to communicate and interact effectively with others. And as you can see, that 10% area is much larger now of what they have. That person has increased life satisfaction, better relationships, 10% not being larger, being more maximized, the maximized potential, that's what I mean. And anyway, they're able to be a more effective leader. So this means that their influence and impact has grown, and likely their salary has too. So again, the IQ and personalities kind of stay fixed over the course of lifetime, and our EQ is the only quality that is flexible and able to change. And it is so critical to success that it accounts for 58% of performance in all types of jobs across the board. And it impacts most everything you say and do each day. It is the single biggest predictor of performance in the workplace and the strongest driver of leadership and personal excellence. So here's some research conducted at the business school at the University of Queensland in Australia. And they discovered that people who are low in EQ and job performance can match their colleagues who excel in both solely by working to improve their EQ. So the link between EQ and earnings is so direct that really every point increase in EQ adds about $1,300 to an annual salary. I don't know about you, but I'm motivated to kind of become more self-aware and work on some things just in knowing that information. So hopefully I've convinced you of that, and we can take a look at what to do with knowing how important that is. Increasing your self-awareness is the first step in growing your emotional intelligence. Research shows that self-awareness is associated with higher job and relationship satisfaction, personal and social control, and happiness. There's two types of self-awareness. First is that internal type, and that represents how accurately we see our own values and aspirations and reactions. It's our ability to see how we fit within our environment and our impact on others. Then the external is understanding how other people view us in terms of the same factors as listed for internal awareness. People who know how others see them are more skilled at showing empathy and taking others' perspectives. And then the assumption would be that being high on one type of awareness would mean being high on the other type. However, research shows virtually no relationship between the two. There's no value in one or the other over the other, but they're both very necessary and valued in leadership. Leaders must actively work on both, seeing themselves clearly and getting feedback to understand how others see them. So you see 4 types of awareness on the screen. The top left, who are low on external but high on internal awareness. They're clear on who they are, but don't challenge their own views or search for blind spots by getting feedback from others. And this can harm their relationships and limit success. Then the seekers on the bottom there, low in both internal and external awareness, they don't quite know yet who they are and what they stand for or how their teams see them. And as a result, they might feel stuck or frustrated with their performance and relationships. On the top right, you have the pleasers, high on external awareness, but low on internal. And they can be so focused on appearing a certain way to others that they could be overlooking what matters to them. Over time, they tend to make choices that aren't really in the service of their own success and fulfillment. And I'll raise my hand and tell you that I feel like I was stuck in that one for a very long time. And then on the bottom right, the aware, the top. The aware individuals, they know who they are, what they want to accomplish, and seek out and value others' opinions. This is where leaders begin to fully realize the true benefits of self-awareness. We shift in and out of these areas throughout our lives, and you might find yourself in one or more of these categories. So my question to you for self-reflection is, what area do you most resonate with? And can you think of people that you know that fit in any of these categories? If we surround ourselves with aware individuals, it helps us grow our awareness. Some of you may have heard some kind of version of, if you find yourself to be the smartest person in all the rooms that you go into, find some new rooms. It's important for our growth to both learn from others and to mentor and lead others. So you want to have both kinds of those rooms. Introspection is a way to examine the causes of our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Asking ourselves questions like why or what may help us gain that insight. Doing so helps us to make decisions and then respond to the awareness that we've gained. So think about which one of the questions on the slide is more effective in promoting self-awareness for self-growth. And while you listen to this example, and as an employee, has received a bad performance review, they feel emotionally unsettled, inadequate, and embarrassed. In a natural process of self-reflection, the employee asks the following why questions. Why did I get such a bad rating? Why doesn't the boss see my worth? As it turns out, asking why is a surprisingly ineffective self-awareness question. The research shows that we simply don't have the access to many of the unconscious thoughts, feelings, and motives we're searching for. And because so much is trapped outside of our conscious awareness, we tend to invent answers that feel true, but sometimes they're not. Asking why, especially when trying to explain an undesired outcome, can invite unproductive, negative thoughts that keep us from staying objective, future-focused, and empowered to act on new insights. So listen to these what questions that can be used instead. What can I do differently to get a better rating? What can I do to communicate better with my boss? In one study, psychologists Hickson and Swan gave a group of undergraduates negative feedback on a test of their sociability, likability, and interestingness. Some in the group were asked to think about why they were the kind of person they were, and then the others were asked to think about what kind of person they are. When the researchers had them evaluate the accuracy of the feedback they had been given, the two groups responded very differently. The why students had spent their energy rationalizing and denying the feedback they were given. The what students were more open to the information and what they might learn from it. So Hickson and Swan's conclusion: thinking about why one is the way one is may be no better than not thinking about it at all. So think of the difference between why do my relationships keep failing versus what can I do differently to keep my relationships from failing? It's really a mindset difference that focuses on growth. So we have personal competence, which is your ability to stay aware of your emotions and manage your behavior and tendencies. And self-management is dependent on self-awareness. That self-awareness is your ability to accurately perceive your own emotions in the moment and understand your tendencies across situations. Self-management is what happens when you act or do not act on what you've become aware of. It's your ability to use your awareness of emotions to stay flexible and direct your behavior positively. So that's the personal competence. Social competence, it's your ability to understand other people's moods, behavior, and motives in order to improve the quality of relationships. Relationship management is dependent on social awareness. And that is your ability to accurately kind of pick up on the emotions in other people and understand what's really going on with them. And this often means perceiving what other people are thinking and feeling, even if you don't feel the same way. Relationship management uses self and social awareness as well as self-management. And it's your ability to use your awareness of your emotions and those of others to manage interactions successfully. And this ensures clear communication and effective handling of conflict. Relationship management is also the bond you build with others over time. People who manage relationships well can see the benefit of connecting with many different people, even those that they are not fond of. To genuinely understand your emotions, you would need to spend enough time thinking through them to figure out where they come from, why you're feeling the way you do, which is not the same kind of why question, because emotions are your reactions to the world around you. Emotions always come from somewhere, and they serve a purpose. So here we have self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. And take a moment and see if you can pick which term goes with which example that is listed. I'm going to give just a moment. All right, I'm going to start with number 1. The number 1 says, you are feeling uneasy and unsettled. That is self-awareness. Suspending judgment of your emotions allows them to run their course and vanish. The next time you feel an emotion start to build, take notice or awareness of it right away. The second one says, you practice suspending judgment of your emotions. That one is self-management. You notice the uncomfortable emotions, so you breathe deep enough to make your stomach protrude outward from that influx of air. Your brain dedicates oxygen first to basic functions because they keep you alive, and what remains is used for complex functions, which keep you alert, focused, and able to process information. The third one says, your friend's countenance suddenly changed during a conversation. That's your social awareness. You're aware of the feelings. You can notice subtle changes in someone's mood or behavior. Tuning into the experience of others helps to develop empathy. One way to boost your social awareness is to greet people by name. Greeting someone by name is one of the most basic and influential social awareness strategies that you can adopt. It's a personal and meaningful way to engage someone and helps you become aware of their reaction to you. And then lastly, your facial expression and body language convey concern. And you ask your friend if your friend is okay. That's the relationship management that you're doing with all of the information that you are become aware of. One of the best ways to help yourself in relationship management is only get mad on purpose. Anger is an emotion that exists for a reason. It's not an emotion to stifle or ignore, but to be angry with the right person to the right degree at the right time and for the right purpose in the right way. That's not easy. Expressing anger in appropriate ways communicates your strong feelings and reminds people of the gravity of a situation. And sometimes it's helping to enforce your boundaries. So awareness, those are your efforts at noticing. Management is you planning and taking action because of what you've noticed. Here's another grouping that you can look at. So as you look at the statements, you can ask yourself, are these things I would do to notice something, meaning awareness, or is this something I do to do because I notice something, management? Then you have to decide if it's managing yourself or does it involve your interactions with other people, which is the relationship management. You're getting a copy of these slides so you can go back and look through them. So I'll go ahead and tell you that the top left, those are self-management, things like clean up your sleep hygiene and counting to 10 before you react emotionally. The top right, that's relationship management. That's like offering a fix-it statement or intentionally practice being open and curious with others. Bottom left is social awareness, catching the mood of the room, getting outside of your head and living in the moment. And the bottom right, self-awareness, where you are checking in with yourself, how you're feeling in the moment. In summary, again, awareness, efforts at noticing, management, planning and taking action because of it. And lastly, I want to go through these 5 gates of that were created by Sufis. Sufism is the mystical tradition within Islam whose followers subscribe to a wisdom and religion of love based on poetry, music, and various esoteric contemplative practices. The tradition encourages conscious communication for the harmony and unity of all. The wisdom in the tradition teaches that if the answer is no to any of these questions, what you were about to speak should be left unsaid, at least for that moment. The fifth gate on there actually is my own addition. My wisdom in life has taught me that sometimes my answers to the 4 questions were yes, but I still experienced an unsettling feeling in speaking my words. So with that experience, I learned that sometimes it's really just waiting on good timing, and that can make all the difference in your message being truly heard. And these gates can also be applied to conversations you have about yourself, the thoughts you have about yourself. With practice, using those 5 gates will help your communication be purposeful and impactful, with rich responses instead of being reactionary. Another great tip in communication is the acronym WAIT, W-A-I-T. Why am I talking? All right. And this is The Law of the Lid by John Maxwell, entrepreneur, speaker, author, and subject matter expert on leadership and personal effectiveness. And he says leadership ability is the lid that determines a person's level of effectiveness. And that's both personally and professionally. And that's what I have for you today. Thank you very much for tuning in. When you get the slides, you'll see that the last of the slides, has a list of the action items that you can take with you and work on as part of the information.
Well, thank you, Sherry, so much. That was an amazing presentation. I definitely learned a lot from it. Well, I think we have time for a couple of questions.
Okay.
And give me a little bit. I'll put a link to the slides in our chat. So let's start from, all right, I'm going to start with a question from Gracie. And Gracie says, have you heard that emotional intelligence questions are being used in job interviews?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. I interview for our organization, and we ask those questions. And that's what we're looking for actually on the job, more so than what they know about the tasks that we are wanting them to perform. We're wanting to look at their effectiveness in relating with other people and their ability to catch on. So yes.
Well, thank you so much. All right, well, I think we have time for one more question, and then we'll ask you, and then Sherry's going to join us again for our panel discussion. And then if anybody else has any questions, please put them in the chat, and maybe Sherry can answer them.
Sure.
And I lost it. And then this question from Patricia says, can one's EI be different depending on who they are interacting with, like colleagues versus family, for example?
That's kind of a tricky question. Your moods and behaviors and past interactions kind of get in the way sometimes of you using the awareness that you have. But you can work on that again by working on those things for social awareness with your coworkers, and on using the 5 gates in how you communicate. Because it's likely past interactions that are emotionally getting in the way.
Well, thank you so much. So before we let you go, do you have any final thoughts on this topic?
Just that my initial learning about it, it's been the past 5 years. I've done some research and developed some trainings surrounding it. It's become a topic that I really enjoy talking about. And since diving into it, I can tell you that the relationships I have personally and professionally, and my salary, honestly, has increased. So there's something to it.
Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Sure.